Gates ripped open the sky, flooding our world with monsters and pure unadulterated chaos. Humanity's only hope arrived through the system, birthing hunters to fight back the tide. Elite families rose to power, hoarding status while our boy stood alone in shadow. Chinan Ryoga shattered every record, becoming the first 9-star hunter without any divine backing. Naturally, the high-end mighty constellations and noble families decided he was a massive problem. Flames now consume the eastern capital, turning the city into a literal burning graveyard. Bodies litter the scorched earth, marking the final stand of our battered lone wolf. This Romanov family flag flies over the carnage, signaling their arrival to finish him. A broken pocket watch ticks away the final seconds, a dramatic touch for sure. Gasping for air, Chinan Ryoga looks absolutely wrecked, barely holding onto his own life. Kneeling in the ruins, he clutches that watch like it's his only remaining tether. Pure hatred burns in his eyes as he curses the name of his enemy. Perched above the rubble, a hooded stranger watches the dying man with cold detachment. Dmitry Andreevich Romanov reveals himself, gloating over the downfall of a self-made 9-star legend. Chinan Ryoga stares up, demanding to know why they are so desperate to kill. Arrogance drips from Dmitry as he confirms it's all about control and divine ego. Constellations are throwing a tantrum over Chinan Ryoga's independence, so he has to go. Our boy, the Undying King, is just too much of a threat to their monopoly. Disgust flashes across Chinan Ryoga's face, clearly unimpressed by this high-ranking villain's pathetic, self-serving logic. Dmitry just laughs, claiming the gods decide who wins because apparently merit means nothing. Dmitry preaches about divine providence, acting like he's the main character of the universe. Chinan Ryoga just listens, letting the villain ramble while he prepares a nasty surprise. Dark energy surges around our boy, signaling that the real fight is finally starting. Skeletal remains rise from the dirt, answering the call of his grim, forbidden magic. Shadows swallow the battlefield as Chinan Ryoga unleashes a field of pure, suffocating death. Skeletons swarm the area, turning the ruins into a nightmare for the arrogant Dmitry. Realizing the kid is not dead yet, Dmitry decides to pull out his biggest, flashiest spell. Golden light descends from above, as if the gods themselves are trying to intervene. Chinan Ryoga watches the incoming strike, wondering if his death field can actually hold up. Blinding energy erupts as the Eye of Odin locks onto its target with lethal intent. Red light pulses violently, signaling the absolute destruction of everything in its path. Shockwaves tear through the city, leaving nothing but dust and scorched earth behind. Amidst the chaos, Chinan Ryoga grins through the blood, planning a final, desperate gamble. Dmitry stares in total disbelief, unable to process why his prey is actually laughing. That mysterious pocket watch glows in Chinan Ryoga's hand, humming with ancient, forbidden power. Time itself begins to warp around the artifact, catching the enemy completely off guard. Gears spin wildly as the watch activates, pulling the threads of reality back together. Blinding light consumes the scene, revealing the secret requirements to trigger this time-bending effect. Stealing the enemy's own divine energy, Chinan Ryoga turns their arrogance into his ultimate weapon. Reality shatters as the timeline reverses, leaving Dmitry screaming at his own tactical failure. Dmitry watches in absolute horror as the Undying King pulls off the impossible. Chinan Ryoga snatches divine energy right out of the air, proving he's a total menace. Flipping the bird to the entire noble establishment, our boy really knows how to exit. That ancient pocket watch ticks down, warping reality until everything starts to blur and fade. Blinding light swallows the battlefield, erasing the carnage and sending our hero back in time. Gasping for air, Chinan Ryoga wakes up in his old room, totally disoriented and sweating. Clutching his chest, he realizes the heart-pounding reality of his second chance at life. Scanning the room with sharp eyes, he confirms the past is exactly as remembered. Staring at his humble apartment, he knows this is the day the system first appeared. Holding the watch, he wonders if he actually managed to pull off that insane gamble. Teeth gritted in pure rage, he vows to make Dmitry pay for his pathetic arrogance. Checking the relic's status, he sees it's a one-way ticket that won't work ever again. Smirking at his own luck, he realizes he bypassed the gods without any divine contract. This system prompt pops up, asking him to choose a class on that fateful day. Reviewing his starting stats, he sees the potential for a much stronger build this time. 3 basic paths appear on his screen, but he's already thinking way ahead of them. Crossing his arms, he remembers his old mistakes and decides to change his entire approach. Sitting on the bed, he plans to take his time and build a better foundation. Grabbing his jacket, he prepares to use his future knowledge to dominate the early game. Arriving at the Natsuhabara market, he steps into the world to start his new journey. Stepping into the shop, our boy is greeted by a clerk with a bright, professional smile. Chinan Ryoga skips the small talk, immediately asking for the infamous Ring of Nether Darkness. Taken aback, the clerk stammers, clearly not expecting a customer to hunt for such dangerous gear. Ignoring the warning, he coolly asks for the price, ready to drop his hard-earned cash. Walking through the market, he knows exactly what he needs to kickstart his new, optimized build. Desperate to avoid a lawsuit, the clerk tries one last time to talk him out of it. Blowing half his savings on a cursed item, talk about a high-stakes gamble for a fresh start. Checking the stats, the ring promises pure abyss energy but comes with a nasty mental curse. Sliding the band onto his finger, he prepares to unlock the hidden potential within the item. Dark energy flares as the ring tests his resolve, demanding total control over the encroaching shadows. Smirking at the system, he easily suppresses the curse, showing off his veteran-level mental fortitude. Staring into the void, he whispers a challenge, ready to settle the score with his enemy. A golden projection of Dimitri manifests, looking down with that signature, insufferable divine arrogance. Dimitri mocks him for playing with rotting flesh, acting like his own power is absolute. Floating above, the villain questions if he can even survive without the backing of the constellations. Preaching about his untouchable status, Dimitri acts like the universe revolves entirely around his own ego. Flicking his finger, the enemy unleashes a beam of divine light, aiming to erase our boy. Golden energy descends like a hammer, but Chinen Ryoga does not even flinch at the incoming strike. System alerts flash as his mental resistance kicks in, completely nullifying the villain's pathetic mind games. With absolute resistance active, he watches the attack bounce off, grinning at his perfect defense. Chinen Ryoga crushes the trial, proving that sometimes the best way to win is just surviving. With the ring's power finally waking up, he realizes the secret was never resisting the darkness. Dimitri's projection keeps running his mouth, acting like Chinen Ryoga is nothing without some fancy divine backing. Our boy decides he does not need a handout, he'll just build his own custom-made constellation instead. That ring levels up to epic grade, basically telling the system to stop being so stingy. Smirking at the interface, Chinen Ryoga knows exactly how to play this game to his advantage. He taps the screen to lock in his class, ready to start this grind all over. Necromancer is the pick, and honestly, who else would he choose to spite the entire noble establishment? This Guide of Death passive kicks in, making his summoning magic way more efficient than before. Feeling pretty good about his start, he crosses his arms, already planning his next big move. Checking his current skill list, he realizes he's back to basics with only 2 measly options. Raise Undead and Bone Control are the only tools in his kit, talk about a humble. Even with all his future knowledge, the system still forces him to play by the rules. He knows he can hit 7-star easily, but reaching the true peak requires something way crazier. Standing there in his room, he realizes that being a simple necromancer just will not cut it. Dimitri is the target, and to take him down, Chinen Ryoga needs a serious guardian star. Taking to the skies, he heads out to find the power he needs to change fate. Arriving at the Temple of Kronos, he looks for a connection that actually holds some weight. Ancient constellations that lost the war against Zeus are just sitting there, gathering dust and regret. Titans like Helios are still around, but they're basically just glorified spectators in this divine mess. Chinen Ryoga stands before the ancient altar, ready to summon something truly worth his time. Holding the shattered watch, he knows the owner of this relic is definitely not ordinary. Raising the artifact high, he signals for a fallen constellation to finally make an appearance. Slamming his fist down on the pedestal, he forces the connection to open wide immediately. Golden sparks fly as the relic reacts, pulsing with the raw energy of a forgotten god. Space itself begins to warp and twist, signaling the arrival of a massive, ancient presence. Within the temple, the atmosphere shifts as a divine entity manifests in the center stage. Our boy watches calmly, waiting for the legendary being to acknowledge his bold, reckless summons. A booming voice demands to know who dares disturb his eternal slumber with such insolence. Towering over him, the projection of Kronos glares down, radiating pure, unadulterated divine fury. Chinen Ryoga just smirks, completely unfazed by the terrifying aura of the former Titan King. Greeting the fallen ruler, he confirms he has finally reached the one he sought out. Kronos stares back with cold, piercing eyes, clearly annoyed by this tiny, mortal interruption. Clutching the watch tightly, Chinen Ryoga prepares to pitch his insane plan to the Titan. Curious despite his rage, the Titan asks if this human really managed to reverse time. Gesturing to the relic, our boy confirms his feat, showing off the proof of regression. Kronos wonders why he was awakened, questioning the true motives behind such a bold move. Recalling his tragic history, the Titan reflects on the betrayal that cost him everything. Proposing a dark alliance, Chinen Ryoga asks the Titan if he is hungry for revenge. Kronos leans in, his interest piqued by the offer to settle the score with Zeus. Chinen Ryoga offers a deal, become his guardian star, and they will hunt Zeus together. Kronos looms over him, mocking the audacity of a mortal trying to lecture a god. Clutching the watch, Chinen Ryoga stands his ground, refusing to be intimidated by divine posturing. He points out his 9-star rank, proving he does not need a handout to wreck Olympus. Targeting the Karamanlis family, he plans to cut off the gods from their earthly influence. Kronos scoffs at the small-scale ambition, clearly unimpressed by the mortal's petty, vengeful little schemes. Questioning his choice of class, the Titan wonders why a regressor would pick a necromancer. Chinen Ryoga grins, explaining that a god of harvest and a necromancer share similar dark goals. Both entities thrive on the cycle of death and rebirth, defying the natural order itself. Harvest and the Reaper are 2 sides of the same coin, linked by forbidden power. Kronos roars in fury, warning the kid not to overstep his bounds with such comparisons. Tremors shake the temple as the Titan's divine pressure threatens to crush everything in sight. Desperate but defiant, Chinen Ryoga yells that now is not the time for fragile pride. Staring into those glowing eyes, he challenges the Titan to accept a life of irrelevance. Our boy pushes the issue, demanding to know if the Titan prefers weakness over revenge. Kronos pauses, the prospect of striking down Olympus finally outweighing his massive, bloated ego. Sweating bullets, Chinan Ryoga realizes this is his final shot at securing a legendary partner. Admitting his hunger for vengeance, the Titan finally drops the act and listens closely. Kronos decides to test the kid, preparing to see if he has the necessary strength. Golden energy flares as the god of harvest prepares to break every rule in existence. Kronos warns that bending reality to his will is going to hurt like absolute hell. Golden light floods the room as the Titan offers a deal, become his chosen saint. Chinan Ryoga stands there, stunned that the legendary king actually agreed to his insane pitch. Divine power surges, binding the two together in a pact that defies all known laws. Panic sets in as our boy realizes he just became a saint for a Titan. Energy screams through his veins, forcing a connection between a mortal and a fallen god. Dark necromancy and divine light collide, turning his insides into a chaotic, burning war zone. Fighting to stay conscious, Chinan Ryoga knows he cannot pass out or the deal dies. Agony rips through his body, but he refuses to let this legendary opportunity slip away. Gritting his teeth, he forces himself to endure the raw, unfiltered power of the Titan. Suddenly, he is walking through an airport, the intense ritual finally coming to an end. Dragging his luggage along, Chinan Ryoga looks surprisingly calm after nearly being vaporized by godhood. Smirking at his surroundings, he decides that Japan is the perfect place to start fresh. Kronos floats beside him, looking around at the modern world with genuine, ancient confusion. Time moves on and even a Titan finds the modern era a bit too fast. A new star officially rises in the pantheon, marking the return of the Harvest King. Chinan Ryoga calls out the Titan for being a chatterbox who has not provided any blessings. Kronos is back, but without any worshippers, he is basically a god on a budget. Our boy plans to build a cult of death to fuel his new guardian's power. This Titan just floats there, acting all sentimental about his long-awaited return to the world. Kronos demands Chinan Ryoga spread his name, but the kid is just annoyed by the situation. Becoming a saint for a Titan is a wild career pivot for a professional necromancer. This system grants him the Saint of the White Knight trait, boosting his divine spell efficiency. Life Drain enters his arsenal, letting him steal vitality while mixing death with holy light. Merging necromancy with divine power is a total paradox, breaking every rule in the book. Chinan Ryoga realizes he is basically a walking cheat code with these dual-class abilities. Kronos claims this was all part of his master plan, acting like the king he was. Scouting for a place to grind, Chinan Ryoga sets his sights on the Furiato Gate. This ancient garden looks like the perfect playground to test his broken new power set. Gates are usually temporary, but this one is a permanent lock that stays put. Ancient Garden is a low-level zone, making it the ideal spot for a quick power trip. Standing before the blue portal, Chinan Ryoga looks ready to wreck the local ecosystem. Other hunters are busy forming parties, oblivious to the absolute monster walking among them. A random party approaches, thinking they can recruit the lone wolf for their little team. They offer him a spot, clearly worried about a solo player entering the gate. Chinan Ryoga shuts them down instantly, not interested in babysitting a bunch of weaklings. This party leader is left confused by the rejection, his ego taking a slight hit. Whispering behind his back, they pity the kid for going in alone. How adorable. A party member tells the others to drop it since he clearly wants to die. Smirking at the gate, Chinan Ryoga prepares to show them exactly what a Titan-blessed saint does. Chinan Ryoga steps into the ancient garden, ready to turn this low-level zone into dust. Silence hangs heavy in the air, but our boy knows the peace will not last long. Rustling bushes signal the arrival of his first target, a classic setup for some violence. Smirking, Chinan Ryoga eyes the shadows, fully prepared to start his grind with some prey. A goblin leaps from the trees, aiming for a surprise attack on our unsuspecting hero. That ugly creature shrieks, its red eyes glowing with a hunger that matches its stupidity. With zero effort, Chinan Ryoga swats the goblin away, making the ambush look like comedy. This monster screeches in confusion, clearly realizing it picked the absolute wrong human to fight. Chinan Ryoga mocks the creature, activating his White Knight trait to channel some divine energy. Holy light surges as he triggers Life Drain, turning the goblin into a battery pack. Feeling the flow, he notes that holy power feels suspiciously like his usual spiritual energy. Dark, necrotic tendrils wrap around the target, stripping its vitality away with cold, calculated efficiency. Vitality floods into him, and Chinan Ryoga watches his base stats climb with every second. Stunned by the rapid growth, he realizes he found a literal cheat code for leveling. Doing the math, he figures out that 25 goblins equal 1 full level up easy. Kronos floats by, looking like a tiny, grumpy spirit while watching his contractor go wild. This Titan asks if he likes the power, and Chinan Ryoga admits it is incredible. Kronos demands praise for his genius, acting like a needy toddler despite being a god. Standing over the drained corpse, Chinan Ryoga eyes the body for his next necromancy project. Dark energy crackles in his hand as he prepares to raise his first undead minion. Green energy crackles as Chinan Ryoga channels his power into the fallen goblin corpse. With a sinister grin, he commands the creature to rise and join his undead army. This goblin stands back up, now glowing with a dark, unnatural aura under his command. A system notification confirms the zombie is a success, boosting his stats by nearly double. This newly minted undead minion is officially classified as a 1-star servant of the grave. Chinan Ryoga notes that his pet is finally strong enough to handle this low-level gate. Walking deeper into the woods, he keeps his new puppet close to scout the area. A pack of wild goblins emerges from the brush, ready to ambush the lone intruder. They surround him, completely unaware that they are about to become target practice for necromancy. Smirking at the incoming threat, Chinan Ryoga gives the signal for his zombie to attack. This undead minion lunges forward with terrifying speed, catching the lead goblin by total surprise. Blood sprays as the zombie rips into its former kin with cold, mindless, brutal efficiency. Other goblins watch in horror, realizing their friend just got turned into a literal puppet. One goblin tries to fight back, but its blade just bounces off the undead hide. Chinan Ryoga mocks the terrified creatures, explaining that their pathetic attacks cannot kill a zombie. He steps in personally, grabbing a goblin by the throat to drain its remaining life. White Knight activates, and he absorbs their vitality to pump up his own base stats. Another goblin gets swatted aside like a fly, its morale completely shattered by the slaughter. Trembling in fear, the last survivor realizes it is facing a monster far worse. Chinan Ryoga watches as his zombie finishes the job, turning the entire pack into dust. Chinan Ryoga tests his new ability, wondering if he can drain life from the dead. Success comes instantly, and he watches his strength and agility stats tick upward with glee. Deciding it is time to speed things up, he prepares to clear the entire zone. A dark truth of necromancy emerges. Once the first kill lands, the rest is just cleanup. Chinan Ryoga stands tall as his first undead servant pulses with a sinister green aura. Calling out to the fallen, he triggers the skill to expand his growing spectral army. Stats skyrocket as his undead squad grows, proving that quality matters less than sheer volume. With a sharp grin, he confirms that he has finally found his perfect leveling rhythm. Watching his minions swarm the remaining enemies, he admits necromancy is truly the best path. Chaos erupts as the undead puppets tear through the goblin pack with zero hesitation. One goblin gets absolutely wrecked, its life force harvested to fuel the master's endless growth. Another creature tries to resist, but it is just another battery for the rising tide. Terror fills the eyes of the remaining goblins as they realize their inevitable grim fate. Brutal efficiency defines the slaughter, turning the once dangerous forest into a simple, mindless grind. Kronos pops up, nagging Chinan Ryoga to fight with a bit more grace and dignity. Ignoring the god, he retorts that this is simply how a real necromancer handles business. A system alert stops him cold, noting he has hit his current limit for servants. Twisting his ring, he prepares to manage his new, loyal squad of mindless green soldiers. Glowing eyes mark his new recruits, standing ready to follow every single dark command given. Charging forward, the undead army screams into the fray, leaving nothing but dust behind them. Chinan Ryoga's undead minions swarm the forest, tearing through the remaining goblin pack with ease. Suddenly, a sharp arrow streaks through the air, piercing the chaos with lethal, fiery precision. One of his zombies takes the hit, but the undead do not exactly care about flesh wounds. Chinan Ryoga halts his army instantly, sensing new players have just entered his private playground. Standing his ground, he demands the hidden archers stop playing games and show their faces. Heavy boots crunch against the forest floor as the intruders finally step into the light. 3 nervous hunters emerge, staring at the necromancer and his glowing, spectral army in disbelief. Kronos hovers nearby, watching his contractor deal with these unexpected, uninvited guests with total indifference. Recognizing the pair, Chinan Ryoga realizes he is facing the infamous twin shadow hunters again. Memories of his past life flood back. These are the exact assassins who tried killing him. Yuma and Tukarendo, the legendary fraternal twins, look ready to fight but clearly lack experience. Chinan Ryoga smirks, noting that these former threats are actually pretty weak in their current state. Both twins are only rank 1, making them look like absolute jokes compared to his power. Temptation strikes to wipe them out now, but he decides they are not worth the wasted energy. This lead twin stammers, asking if Chinan Ryoga is the one actually controlling the undead horde. Thinking fast, he realizes the Necromancer class is still a secret, so he keeps things vague. Casually admitting the zombies are his summons, he watches the hunters turn pale with pure terror. Cold, golden eyes lock onto them, signaling that he is currently the one calling the shots. Eyeing their gear, he decides they would make excellent cheap labor for carrying his heavy loot. With a sinister grin, he offers them a job, leaving the confused hunters completely speechless. Chinan Ryoga pitches his business model, offering the hunters easy cash for minimal effort. This trio stands frozen, clearly processing the sheer audacity of this bizarre, unsolicited job offer. Whispers break out among the hunters, questioning if they should really trust this shady necromancer. Bored by their hesitation, Chinan Ryoga yawns, showing zero patience for their internal group drama. Impatience grows as he waits for them to stop debating and actually start working. Finally, the lead hunter caves, deciding that following the weird guy is their best bet. Negotiations continue, with the hunter trying to squeeze out a better split for his team. Chinan Ryoga shuts down the bargaining with a firm ultimatum, forcing them to accept. Tensions rise as the group members bicker, one questioning if they are making a mistake. Their leader insists that if Chinan Ryoga wanted them dead, they would be gone already. Convinced by his logic, they decide to stick around, hoping for a bigger payday. Exhaustion hits the hunters hard, the forest trek proving far more grueling than expected. One hunter collapses, begging for a break while clutching the loot they already found. His partner agrees, admitting she is completely spent from keeping up with the pace. Chinan Ryoga watches them struggle, seemingly unimpressed by their lack of stamina and grit. This lead hunter stares at him, realizing this guy is definitely not a normal person. Reality sets in as he watches the undead horde continue their relentless, efficient slaughter. Pointing out more loot, Chinan Ryoga keeps the pressure on, ignoring their obvious fatigue. Desperate for a breather, the leader tries to ask for a pause, looking visibly drained. Meanwhile, the undead minions keep grinding, tearing through enemies without ever needing a nap. Chinan Ryoga casually points out more targets, his undead minion finishing off another pathetic goblin. He tells his terrified new recruits to take their time, clearly enjoying their visible discomfort. These hunters are losing their minds, realizing their employer is definitely not a normal human being. With the area mostly cleared, Chinan Ryoga decides it is the perfect moment to check progress. A blue holographic screen pops up, displaying his current power levels and overall combat growth. His stats are skyrocketing, showing massive gains in strength and agility after just 3 hours. Smirking at the data, he notes that his life drain ability is absurdly efficient for leveling. Leveling up feels like a breeze, but he is already looking for the next big challenge. Bats circle overhead as he sets his sights on the forest boss, ready for more action. Suddenly, they spot the goblin leader, sitting on a throne and looking way too full of himself. That arrogant shaman spots the intruders, immediately labeling them as foolish humans who wandered too far. Chinan Ryoga just laughs at the creature, mocking the goblin for acting like a mountain king. His nervous companions whisper warnings about the shaman's reputation, begging him not to start a fight. Glowing red eyes lock onto them, the shaman screaming for his minions to capture the human. A wave of green soldiers charges forward, eager to follow their master's brutal, violent command. Chinan Ryoga does not even flinch, ordering his own undead squad to tear through the incoming pack. Spectral energy flares as his minions clash with the goblins, trading blows in the dark woods. One goblin swings a blade with desperate force, hoping to land a hit on the undead. Blood sprays across the forest floor as the goblin strikes, landing a solid, messy, lethal blow. His unit count drops as the minion falls, but the Necromancer barely cares about the loss. Chinan Ryoga commands his undead army, his eyes glowing with that signature Necromancer intensity. A fallen goblin rises again, the counter ticking up as his forces grow in strength. One of his minions brutally dispatches a goblin, showing zero mercy to the green horde. Another enemy falls, the sheer efficiency of his undead squad leaving the opposition completely reeling. This terrified hunters watch in disbelief, wondering if he is actually recycling their fresh kills. Suddenly, the goblin shaman raises his staff, clearly done playing nice with these human intruders. A skull totem erupts from the ground, glowing with a weird, ominous energy that pulses. Red-eyed goblins surge forward, their aggression dialed up to 11 thanks to the shaman's buff. That arrogant shaman gloats about his totem, thinking he has the upper hand in this. Chinan Ryoga just stands there, looking bored while his minion casually holds the shaman's staff. This goblin leader turns around, realizing his precious totem is currently in the wrong hands. Pure rage fills the shaman as he screams about his stolen, sacred piece of wood. Multiple skull totems slam into the dirt, turning the battlefield into a chaotic, magical mess. An undead minion slashes through the air, ready to turn the shaman into a corpse. Chinan Ryoga blocks the shaman's desperate move, refusing to let him reclaim his magical toy. With a mocking grin, he asks the shaman if he is feeling a little frustrated. Madness Hex activates, the shaman slamming his staff down to unleash a wave of chaos. His hunters huddle together, completely overwhelmed by the magical fallout of this insane boss fight. Goblins get a massive stat boost, their eyes glowing brighter as they prepare for war. Another minion bites the dust, the count dropping as the boss fight hits peak intensity. Chinan Ryoga's undead squad is absolutely shredding through the goblin ranks with zero effort. Another green soldier hits the dirt, just another stat point in this one-sided slaughter. Piles of fallen enemies litter the ground, proving that quantity rarely beats pure necromantic efficiency. Our boy realizes the shaman's staff is the real MVP of this entire goblin operation. That arrogant shaman starts monologuing about his bone staff, acting like he's some legendary boss. Chinan Ryoga just smirks, already calculating how easy it will be to turn that against him. Confidence radiates off him, knowing this fight is basically over before it even really started. Bone control activates, and suddenly the shaman's precious weapon is not under his command anymore. Panic sets in as the goblin realizes his favorite toy is literally slipping away. Madness Hex gets shut down instantly, leaving the shaman looking completely lost and totally powerless. Screaming in disbelief, the goblin stares at his empty hands, wondering where his power went. Backlash hits the horde hard, their stats tanking while Chinen Ryoga enjoys the total chaos. Desperation is a bad look on a boss, but this guy is wearing it perfectly. System notifications confirm the debuff, making this entire encounter look like a total joke now. Mocking the creature, Chinen Ryoga invites him to try his best, knowing he's already won. Spectral energy pulses through the stolen skull, showcasing the raw potential of his Necromancer class. Resentment makes the magic hit harder, a detail our boy finds hilariously convenient for leveling. Tossing the staff back with a grin, he shows exactly how little he actually cares. Projectile magic launches the skull right back at the owner, turning his pride into pain. Shock is the only thing left on the shaman's face as his own weapon strikes. A blade pierces the goblin, ending its pathetic run as a minor forest nuisance. Chinen Ryoga drains the life right out of the creature, harvesting its essence for himself. Life drain completes, leaving the goblin a hollow shell while his own stats spike upward. Mana and strength gains keep rolling in, making this boss fight look like a shopping spree. Our boy looks genuinely surprised by the massive power boost he just snagged from the kill. Those stunned hunters watch him, clearly wondering what kind of monster they actually teamed up with. Kneeling down, Chinen Ryoga finishes the job by looting the remains with cold, calculated efficiency. Realizing he almost drained the goblin dry, he pockets the blood for later, just in case. Handing off the grunt work, he tells the group to handle the cleanup like a boss. Looking at the mountain of goblin corpses, the hunters are completely speechless at the carnage. Back in the city, the skyline looms as they return from the wild, dangerous woods. Chinen Ryoga struts through the gate, looking like he just finished a casual, breezy stroll. His companions follow behind, looking exhausted while carrying the heavy loot from the massive slaughter. Crowds whisper in disbelief, shocked that such a small team could clear out so many monsters. Checking in with the squad, he suggests hitting a local shop to offload their haul. This armored companion insists they handle the sale themselves to get a better, fair price. Giving them a sharp look, Chinen Ryoga questions if he should even trust these strangers. Panic hits the group as they defend their hard work, only for him to laugh. Asking for a price estimate, he gets a solid number that makes the effort worth. Stashing the skull staff away, he keeps his focus on the payday waiting for them. Chinen Ryoga eyes the loot, already predicting the staff will fetch a pathetic price. That cursed item is basically a mental health hazard with zero practical use for anyone. Since priests can't even channel the spirit power, the whole thing is just fancy firewood. Keeping the useless trinket for himself, he leaves the team baffled by his weird choice. Telling them to just deduct the value from his cut, he makes the decision final. His teammates protest, insisting he earned every bit of that haul through his own effort. Agreeing to follow his lead, the group accepts his terms without any further awkward debate. Loving their lack of ego, Chinen Ryoga grins, clearly impressed by this rare, compliant squad. Promising to dive again tomorrow, he waves them off as they head home for rest. Next day arrives and he steps into the ancient garden, ready for some solo grinding. Necromantic energy flares as he summons his undead army to clear the path ahead. Scanning the area with a cold gaze, he checks for any hidden, unwanted eyes. Watching his team struggle to keep up, he realizes they are already totally tapped out. Exhaustion hits the group hard and they admit they have reached their absolute limit today. Bags overflowing with loot, he tells them to scram while he stays to finish business. Walking through the shadows, he leads his spectral minions deeper into the dark, dense woods. Asking why he sent them away, his companion gets a smirk that says everything. Declaring he wants zero spectators for what comes next, he prepares for a real fight. Deep in the north side of the garden, the atmosphere turns heavy and truly ominous. Glowing eyes watch from the brush, signaling that something nasty is waiting for him. Chinen Ryoga stands calm while a swarm of frogmen charges him, totally unfazed. Spectral shadows erupt, turning the tide as he unleashes his necromancer skills on them. One frogman gets absolutely wrecked by the sheer force of his dark, magical assault. Massive red eyes stare back, but the creature is already losing this lopsided fight. Chinen Ryoga drives his weapon home, piercing through the enemy with cold, calculated precision. Another strike lands and the frogman collapses, proving that speed is just a suggestion. Chaos reigns as his spectral minions tear through the ranks, making it look easy. Watching the carnage, he notes that frogmen are just slightly tougher snacks than goblins. Bone control activates, turning his staff into a projectile that hunts down the survivors. Piercing through the chest, the skull staff delivers a debuff that ruins their day. That frogman looks genuinely confused, realizing his armor is now just a decorative paperweight. Chinen Ryoga follows up with a brutal kick, sending the creature flying into oblivion. Infusing spiritual power, he buffs his staff to ensure every hit is a lethal. Standing tall, he scoffs at the weak resistance, barely breaking a sweat today, pathetic. Bone control strikes again, pinning multiple enemies down with effortless, dark, and lethal efficiency. Mana drain starts ticking, but he pushes through the cost to keep the momentum. Raising the dead, he turns the fallen frogman into his own personal, loyal army. Sweat beads on his brow, but he grins, knowing the power trade is worth. An entire squad of glowing undead frogmen now follows his lead, ready for war. Finishing the last one off, he hits level 6 and keeps the grind rolling. Chinen Ryoga is feeling himself, confident he's hitting his old-school power levels way too fast. That Sorcerer King better watch his back because our boy is coming to wreck him. Deep in the ancient garden, a mysterious glowing altar sits waiting for a real challenger. Chinen Ryoga struts in with his undead Frogman squad, looking like he owns the place. Holding a fresh Frogman heart, he's got a twisted experiment brewing in his cold hands. His ghostly sidekick tries to play the voice of reason but gets told to zip it. Drip by drip, he infuses the heart with goblin blood, talk about a cursed smoothie recipe. Dark energy pulses as the heart reacts, and Chinen Ryoga just grins at the chaos. Glowing with necromantic power, he finally unlocks the secret area hidden from everyone else's sight. System notifications pop up, confirming he's officially cracked the code to the ancient trial grounds. Stepping into the massive arena, he finds himself totally alone in this high-stakes death trap. Remembering his past life, he recalls being too weak to even step foot in here. Surrounded by his loyal undead minions, he prepares to face whatever nightmare the arena spawns. Lightning crackles across the floor, signaling that the trial is officially kicking off right now. A massive clawed foot slams down, shaking the ground and announcing a serious new threat. Chinen Ryoga looks up, his expression shifting from cocky to genuinely focused on the challenge. This system drops the hammer. It's a one-person trial, and he's got to prove his worth. Eyes burning with intensity, he stares down the danger, ready to show them his power. A hulking draconian spawns in, giving him 10 minutes to survive or get absolutely crushed. High above, the constellations watch the carnage, hungry to see if he survives the slaughter. A massive draconian warrior spawns in, giving Chinen Ryoga 10 minutes to survive the trial. His ghostly sidekick mocks him, betting he will not even last 10 seconds against this beast. Ignoring the trash talk, Chinen Ryoga stands his ground with his undead Frogman in tow. He knows the draconian is scaled down for the trial, but it's still no cakewalk. This monster charges and Chinen Ryoga desperately tries to stall for some prep time. Asking for a timeout to remodel his minions, he treats this death match like DIY. Since the enemy actually waits, he starts weaving dark magic to buff his undead squad. Shadows swirl around the frogmen, mutating them into something far more toxic and dangerous. System notifications confirm the upgrade. His frogmen are now full-blown plague zombies ready for chaos. Smirking at his own genius, he recalls his past life as a 9-star necromancer. Fully prepped, he drops the act and tells the draconian to bring the heat. This beast lunges with terrifying speed, closing the distance in a blur of muscle. Chinen Ryoga sends his plague zombies flying into the fray to intercept the incoming strike. Impact hits hard, but the zombies latch onto the draconian like a living green rash. Teeth and claws sink in, spreading the new infection across the monster's tough hide. This draconian struggles to shake them off, clearly annoyed by the persistent, rotting pests. One zombie gets smashed into paste, but the damage is already done to the beast. Acid poison begins to melt the draconian's grip, proving Chinen Ryoga's gamble was totally worth. Sacrificing raw stats for pure chemical warfare, he watches his plan unfold with glee. This draconian slams the ground, but he's already trapped in a losing battle of attrition. A massive claw slams into the arena floor, shaking the very foundation of the trial. That draconian warrior looms over Chinen Ryoga, snarling with pure, unadulterated predatory intent, total nightmare fuel. Chinen Ryoga keeps his cool, mocking the beast for actually surviving his nasty acid poison. Injecting spiritual power into his staff, he buffs his defense to tank the incoming heavy hits. Impact rings out as he blocks the draconian's strike, sparks flying like a chaotic fireworks show. Sweat drips as he realizes the monster is still hitting like a truck despite the debuffs. Pushing back with a surge of energy, he forces the hulking beast to give some ground. That draconian does not let up, lunging forward again with terrifying, lizard-like speed and lethal razor-sharp claws. Chinen Ryoga calls on his signature move, weaving dark magic to exert his iron-fisted bone control. Piercing through the monster's hide, a spectral bone stake slams into the draconian with brutal, crushing force. Roaring in agony, the beast staggers back, its massive frame reeling from the sudden, piercing magical assault. Chinen Ryoga shouts the command, sending his plague-ridden frogmen to swarm the wounded, struggling giant. Rotting minions latch onto the draconian, their toxic presence eating away at its thick, scaled armor. Clinging to the beast like a parasitic nightmare, the undead squad refuses to let their prey escape. One zombie gets obliterated by a desperate punch, but the infection is already deep in the wound. Another frogman gets smashed into green paste, yet the draconian is clearly losing the war of attrition. Smirking, Chinen Ryoga admits the beast put up a decent fight, but the end is finally here. Kneeling in the dirt, the draconian collapses, its strength completely drained by the relentless toxic plague assault. Walking toward the defeated warrior, Chinen Ryoga prepares to deliver the final, decisive blow to the monster. Channeling holy power through a life drain, he finishes the job and claims his hard-earned victory. Chinen Ryoga clears the trial, leaving the defeated draconian carcass cooling on the arena floor. His ghostly sidekick is stunned, admitting that using undead hordes against dragons is pure insanity. System rewards pop up, granting him the crest of perseverance for his absolute stubborn survival. Buffs are active, and Chinan Ryoga feels the power boost coursing through his tired veins. Eyeing the dragon corpse, he starts plotting how to recycle this beast into something useful. Dark energy crackles as he decides to forge a superior undead minion from the remains. Needing specialized gear, he wonders if the legendary alchemist has already set up his shop. Traveling to Saitama Prefecture, he tracks down the familiar location from his past life memories. Standing before the workshop, he finds the place exactly as he remembers it before dying. Smirking at the nostalgia, he knows exactly who is lurking inside this dusty old building. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocks the facility, proving that some things never change around here. Coughing through the thick smoke, he realizes the alchemist is still as reckless as ever. Through the haze, he spots the target, looking just as frazzled as the last time. A sharp grin crosses his face. It is time to make a very interesting professional connection. Spotting the intruder, the alchemist stares back, completely caught off guard by the sudden visit. Aratani Rinya, the legendary genius alchemist, stands there looking like he just blew up again. Chinan Ryoga approaches, asking for a quick word while the lab continues to smolder away. Introducing himself with a polite hand, he drops the request to use the alchemy tools. Aratani Rinya looks visibly repulsed, clearly not a fan of this random, shady necromancer showing up. Ignoring the obvious hate, Chinan Ryoga clarifies he is not here to borrow anything, he is taking. Chinan Ryoga corners the genius alchemist, dropping knowledge about his secret potion research. Aratani Rinya looks completely rattled, wondering how this random guy knows his private business. Vials sit on the table, the red one glowing with a strange, unstable energy. Shadows stretch across the lab as Chinan Ryoga prepares to drop a massive reality check. Aratani Rinya stares in disbelief, shocked that his volatile concoction actually stabilized under pressure. Smirking, Chinan Ryoga claims this tech is years ahead of its time, totally flexing knowledge. Offering a challenge, he asks if the alchemist wants to see the real magic happen. Without hesitation, Chinan Ryoga slices his own arm, showing he is not messing around today. Blood drips into the mixture, acting as the final catalyst for his twisted experiment. Bubbles erupt from the wound, the potion reacting instantly to his unique dark essence. Holding the glowing red vial, Chinan Ryoga looks like a mad scientist with a plan. Aratani Rinya is absolutely losing his mind, his eyes wide with pure, unadulterated scientific greed. Staring at the successful brew, the alchemist wonders if he is dreaming right now. Chinan Ryoga plays it cool, teasing the guy by snatching the vial away quickly. Playing hard to get, he keeps the prize just out of reach, baiting him. Desperate for answers, Aratani Rinya begs to know the secret formula behind this breakthrough. Dark energy swirls as Chinan Ryoga demands a price for his precious, forbidden alchemical wisdom. Proposing a partnership, he offers to share his recipes if the alchemist joins him. Setting the terms, he demands a lopsided royalty split, taking the lion's share easily. Watching the hook sink in, Chinan Ryoga knows he has successfully trapped his new asset. Chinan Ryoga flashes a sinister grin, effectively strong-arming the genius alchemist into his new partnership. That massive dragon carcass sits there, just waiting to be turned into a terrifying undead weapon. Aratani Rinya stares at the beast, clearly wondering how this guy plans to recycle such carnage. Casually dropping his necromancy plans, Chinan Ryoga treats the legendary monster like a simple DIY project. Ordering the alchemist to quit gawking and start working, he turns the lab into his workshop. Aratani Rinya balks at the demand, pointing out that they have not even signed a formal contract. Laughing off the protest, Chinan Ryoga just keeps pushing, giving the guy zero room to breathe. Watching from the sidelines, the ghostly sidekick notes that the alchemist is justifiably terrified of commitment. Backstory hits hard. Aratani Rinya got burned by corporate greed, so his trust issues are totally valid. Cynicism fills the air as Chinan Ryoga mocks the gods and the messy human world alike. Realizing the hesitation, he decides to prove his worth by showing off some actual high-level skills. Challenging the genius to a test, he hands over a spoon to start the real work. Eyes locked on the prize, Aratani Rinya finally starts to see the potential in this madness. Agreement reached, the two shake on it, or rather they start the experiment with a sharp snap. Chinan Ryoga barks out precise, technical instructions demanding a specific ratio for the magic stone melt. Speed is the name of the game, and the alchemist delivers the results almost instantly. Impressed by the efficiency, Chinan Ryoga keeps the pressure on while plotting his next dark move. Pouring the glowing catalyst over the dragon, he begins the process of forging his new minion. Dark energy pulses as he explains the plan, engraving cursed formulas directly onto the dragon's bones. Layering these forbidden techniques, the duel works in sync to boost the undead's combat performance significantly. Chinan Ryoga keeps the pressure on, forcing the alchemist to grind those materials down. Aratani Rinya is basically losing his mind, working like a man possessed by pure stress. Suddenly the work is done, and Chinan Ryoga inspects the glowing, freshly enchanted dragon remains. 3 days of non-stop labor later, our boy is feeling smug while the alchemist collapses. Aratani Rinya stares at him, genuinely terrified by how this guy keeps pulling off miracles. Watching the corpse's heartbeat, the alchemist realizes this necromancer is way beyond his level. That red vial sits there, a testament to the dark, impossible science Chinan Ryoga commands. Turning around, Chinen Ryoga drops the final ultimatum to seal their new, twisted professional bond. Aratani Rinyath finally cracks, agreeing to the proposal because he is just that desperate now. Chinen Ryoga mocks the timeline, pointing out how much time he just saved the guy. Realizing his research is the only thing that matters, the alchemist accepts his new reality. Welcoming him to the team, Chinen Ryoga confirms his status as his new servant alchemist. Now he needs a soul to power the dragon, time to go shopping for parts. A quick phone call later, he is already lining up his next shady, profitable gig. Deep in the woods near the boundary, the atmosphere feels heavy with impending dark trouble. A group of clueless rookies stands guard, looking way too proud of their defensive formation. Chinen Ryoga strolls up, telling them to drop the act because he is not impressed. Walking through the tall grass, he questions why these kids are playing hero in danger. Smiling like a shark, he claims he is just here to visit an old acquaintance. Peering through the leaves, Chinen Ryoga hunts for his target with that signature chilling focus. Chinen Ryoga stalks through the tall grass, trailing a group of totally clueless rookie adventurers. They stumble upon a 2-star orc, acting like they've found the boss of the forest. Panicking, the team tries to stop Chinen Ryoga, clearly worried about his lack of armor. Ignoring their amateur dramatics, he pulls out a processed ghoul bone to test its lethal potential. With a flick of his wrist, he activates his bone control, turning the item deadly. Those glowing red eyes lock onto the orc, signaling that the real hunt has begun. This orc readies its spear, unaware that it is already just a pile of future scrap. Launching a brutal strike, the monster charges, but Chinen Ryoga just watches with cold, detached amusement. Smirking at the creature's predictable aggression, he decides it is time to end this little game. A sharp bone projectile pierces the orc, drawing blood and proving his dark craftworks. Laughing off the minor resistance, he notes that the beast is surprisingly tough for its rank. Dark energy surges as he manipulates the bone, tearing through the orc's defenses with ease. This creature lets out a desperate roar, but it is already locked in a losing battle. Preparing for the final blow, Chinen Ryoga stands still while the orc winds up again. Explosive power ripples through the air, turning the forest floor into a chaotic, messy crater. One of the rookies manages a shield block, but Chinen Ryoga is already unimpressed by them. Glaring with cold intensity, he decides that one bone spike is simply not enough today. Raising his hand, he commands the shadows to weave more lethal projectiles from the air. This orc freezes in terror as multiple cursed spikes manifest, surrounding it from every angle. Multiple strikes hit home, silencing the monster for good in a spray of dark crimson. Chinen Ryoga stands over the fallen orc, leaving the rookie team completely stunned and speechless. One of the rookies stammers, unable to process how he just crushed a 2-star threat. Ignoring their shock, Chinen Ryoga tells them to keep moving because this is just starting. Confused, the armored rookie asks if they are still heading to pay their respects today. Dark energy crackles around his hand, confirming he has a much more sinister agenda planned. Chinen Ryoga reveals his true target is actually located deep within the nearby orc settlement. High walls loom over the camp, housing the orcs he intends to hunt for parts. Still trying to keep up, the rookie questions if this is really the right path. Power surges again as Chinen Ryoga confirms his intent with a cold, sharp affirmative nod. Pointing toward the settlement, he makes it clear that the real hunt begins right there. Smirking, he reminds them that they can make some easy cash while they are at. This rookies share a nervous laugh, clearly realizing they are way out of their depth. Another level-up notification pops up, showing his stats climbing as he absorbs the orc's essence. A system warning appears, noting that he has hit the absorption limit for this race. Chinen Ryoga is not even surprised, just annoyed that his power leveling is not going to be infinite. Watching the sunset, he decides it is time to call it a day. He checks in with the team, making sure they are ready to camp for now. 3 days of grinding have passed, and he is feeling pretty good about his progress. Under the moonlight, he sets the plan to raid the orc settlement first thing tomorrow. Giving the rookies the night watch duty, he prepares to rest up for the slaughter. This team calls it a night, leaving Chinen Ryoga to his own dark, quiet devices. Under the pale moonlight, he finds the perfect spot to grind out some serious levels. While the rookies sleep like logs, our boy is busy hunting for that sweet experience. A satisfying level-up notification finally pops up, giving him a much-needed boost in his power. Dark energy swirls around his fingers as he prepares to dive into his forbidden archives. Accessing the ancient library, he searches for secrets left by the previous Master of Death. Frustration hits when he realizes the system is still locking away all the good stuff. Apparently, he needs to hit level 45 just to peek at the real necromancy manuals. Staring at these pathetic beginner guides, he feels personally insulted by the system's low standards. Settling for what he can get, he decides that even basic knowledge is better than nothing. Sitting on the forest floor, he starts flipping through the pages with intense, focused eyes. Every line of text he absorbs brings him closer to mastering his grim, new craft. His eyes glow with a sudden, sharp realization as a brand new skill finally clicks into. Back at the camp, one of the rookies is still snoring away in total bliss. Suddenly, he jolts awake, sensing something cold and heavy looming right over his sleeping face. A massive bone-clad monstrosity stands there, staring down at the terrified kid with glowing eyes. Chinen Ryoga steps out of the shadows, calmly telling the panicked group it is time. This rookie stammers, clearly confused by the sudden, terrifying change in their undead companion's appearance. Smirking, Chinan Ryoga brushes off the concern, acting like he just gave his pet a. He shows off his upgraded squad of armored zombies, ready to crush everything in sight. Chinan Ryoga checks his new skills, bone armor and flesh ripple looking like absolute game changers. With his undead squad in tow, he tells the team it is time to raid. Sunset hits the horizon, casting a blood-red glow over the path to the orc settlement. This group marches forward, Chinan Ryoga flanked by his terrifying, silent, and very dead bodyguards. Looming ahead, the massive wooden walls of the orc camp promise a chaotic, high-stakes night. Suddenly, a guard spots them, screaming about an enemy attack while swinging a heavy club. Orcs pour out from the gates, spears leveled and ready to defend their home turf. Chinan Ryoga does not even flinch, simply raising a hand to command the bone control skill. Lethal spikes erupt from the ground, shattering the orc defenses with a sickening wet crunch. Bone shards tear through the front line, turning the charging orcs into a bloody mess. Casually brushing off the chaos, he tells his panicking allies to just pipe down already. A massive orc warrior steps up, roaring with pure rage as he prepares to strike. Towering over the battlefield, the brute raises his axe, ready to crush everything in sight. Behind him, a squad of orc archers draws their bows, aiming for the intruders' heads. Arrows rain down, but the rookie team manages to hold their ground behind a shield. One of the archers in the group readies a crossbow, eyes locked on the target. Flaming bolts fly through the air, hitting the orc line with explosive, fiery precision. Direct hits turn the orcs into human torches, their screams echoing across the burning camp. Chinan Ryoga smirks at the carnage, clearly enjoying the show while his spirit guide cheers. With the defenses shattered, he orders the final charge to finish the job for good. Chinan Ryoga signals his undead squad to charge, turning the camp into a total war zone. One armored zombie winds up a massive punch, ready to send an orc flying away. Blasting through the front line, the undead force clears a path with pure raw power. Smirking, Chinan Ryoga notes that his late-night reading session is already paying off in spades. Watching the orcs scramble in sheer terror, he knows he has them right where he wants. That was just the warm-up, because our boy is only getting started with this brutal raid. Charging forward, the orcs try to rally, but they are walking straight into a meat grinder. Steel clashes against bone as the zombies tank every hit, holding the line without a scratch. An orc axe bites into the armor, but the system warning shows the damage is minimal. Chinan Ryoga snaps his fingers, activating bone armor to reinforce his squad's defenses in real time. Instantly, the zombie's gear repairs itself, leaving the orc attacker looking completely baffled by the magic. Flesh ripples across the ground, turning the battlefield into a shifting, deadly trap for everyone. Spikes of necrotic energy erupt, pinning the orcs in place while they struggle to break free. Screams echo through the camp as the orcs realize they are completely outmatched by this necromancer. One of the rookies watches in awe, finally grasping the terrifying extent of Chinan Ryoga's control. Skill management like this is unheard of, making the kid look like a total combat genius. Standing amidst the carnage, Chinan Ryoga keeps his cool while his squad dominates the entire field. A massive orc warrior emerges from the smoke, eyes glowing with a dangerous red primal rage. Dark energy begins to swirl around the brute, signaling a terrifying shift in the fight's momentum. Berserk mode kicks in and the system warns that this orc is evolving into something lethal. Chinan Ryoga smirks, clearly thinking the orc's evolution is just another fun little challenge. That massive warrior swings his heavy axe, aiming to cleave our boy in two. Inches away from the blade, Chinan Ryoga stands his ground with zero panic. With a flick of his wrist, he activates bone control to stop the momentum. Sharp, jagged spikes erupt from the earth, surrounding the beast in a lethal cage. Piercing through the orc's chest, the bone shards draw blood with a sickening thud. Dark energy surges into the wound, tearing through the warrior's defenses from the inside. Roaring in agony, the orc tries to break free, but the bones hold tight. Desperate, the brute realizes his own body is being puppeteered by this twisted magic. Chinan Ryoga watches the drain on his power, realizing this fight is getting expensive. Taunting the dying warrior, he promises that misery loves company in the afterlife. Holding the massive orc in place requires every ounce of his focus and mana. Realizing he cannot sustain this hold, he knows he must end it right now. Channeling his remaining energy, he prepares one final, bone-shattering strike to finish the job. Spikes drive deeper into the orc's vitals, silencing the beast's rage for good. Collapsing to the ground, the once mighty warrior becomes nothing more than a lifeless husk. Exhausted and bleeding, Chinan Ryoga catches his breath after that intense, high-stakes exchange. Reaching out, he activates Life Drain to siphon the remaining energy from the battlefield. Glowing light surrounds him as his spiritual power begins to climb back up. Feeling the rush of restored strength, he grins, ready to keep this slaughter going. Chinan Ryoga looms over the survivors, his presence alone enough to make them bolt. Orcs scramble toward the gate in a blind panic, desperate to escape his reach. Glowing with dark intent, he makes it clear that nobody is walking away today. Flesh ripple tears through the ground, shredding the legs of the fleeing orc stragglers. One massive undead minion slams down, crushing the remaining resistance with a brutal strike. Panic sets in as the orcs realize their path to safety is completely blocked off. Raising his hand, Chinan Ryoga commands his undead to finish the job without mercy. A stray axe lies in the dirt, marking the end of a very short career. Surveying the loot scattered across the field, he wonders if the payout is actually worth. Spotting a unique item, he realizes the real prize is finally within his cold grasp. This blood axe reveals its stats, a rare weapon that grows stronger with every kill. Grinning, Chinan Ryoga decides that conquering this village was definitely a solid use of time. Handing the weapon to Yuma, he delegates the tedious cleanup work to his loyal allies. Telling them to handle the mana stones, he prepares to take a much-needed break. Stumbling upon a strange, twisted tree, he senses something hiding deep within the wood. Calling out to the hidden presence, he demands a conversation instead of more fighting. Silence greets his request, but the tree seems to pulse with a restless energy. Sighing, Chinan Ryoga grips his bone staff, realizing that peace is never really an option. Flames erupt around him as he prepares to force the issue with raw power. Swinging his weapon with lethal intent, he decides to crack the mystery wide open. Chinan Ryoga channels his power, the air crackling as he confronts the mysterious ancient entity. Towering before him, the dark presence looms, questioning if he truly needs to be aggressive. Shadows swirl around the entity, its glowing red eye piercing through the gloom like a beacon. Smirking, Chinan Ryoga greets the spirit with a casual confidence that feels entirely out of place. Identifying the spirit as the legendary magic fighter Sora Kashiwagi, he drops a massive lore bomb. Shocked, the spirit demands to know how this kid could possibly recognize such a forgotten name. Laughing, Chinan Ryoga explains he fought alongside this hero back before the timeline even reset itself. Pointing to a nearby cenotaph, he notes that history remembers the sacrifice, even if people forget. Magic circles flare as he recalls the hero's unique dual talent style, a true relic of history. Realizing his legacy survived the chaos, the spirit finds a strange, dark peace in his death. Chinan Ryoga gazes at the horizon, musing that not every hero gets a fancy stone monument. Confusion hits the spirit, wondering what exactly the Necromancer is implying with that cryptic little remark. Dropping another name, he brings up Naruhito Byakugo, the submaster who clearly left a messy trail. Panic erupts over the radio as a desperate soldier screams for backup while everything burns down. Civilians are trapped in the southern district, facing certain doom while the higher-ups stay totally silent. Screaming into the comms, the soldier begs for Byakugo to answer, but the line stays dead. Monsters tear through their defenses, leaving the squad to fend for themselves against impossible lethal odds. Static fills the air as the radio confirms that no help is coming for them today. Realization dawns on the soldier, his face hardening as he understands the cold, calculated betrayal here. Bitterly, he calls out the cowardice of those who used them as bait while escaping north. A radio crackles with news that the main force escaped the north gate safely. Our guy stares at the device, realizing they were used as bait for civilians. That smug voice on the other end tells him not to be so pessimistic. Apparently, the survivors are being hailed as heroes while the real victims get erased. Fed up with the corporate spin, he crushes the radio into scrap metal. Chaos erupts as monsters swarm the area, forcing everyone to fight for their lives. Chinan Ryoga unleashes a massive blast of dark energy to clear the path forward. Bodies hit the ground as the intensity of the slaughter reaches a fever pitch. Desperate orders ring out to protect the civilians, but the situation is rapidly deteriorating. Panic shows on their faces as they realize they are completely surrounded by flames. Screaming for them to hurry, he takes charge of the absolute disaster unfolding here. Shadows swirl around the ancient spirit, revealing the bitter truth about his stolen legacy. Records of his sacrifice were wiped clean while the traitor Byakugo took the credit. Chinan Ryoga shakes his head, noting that dying for nothing is a total bummer. This spirit roars in fury, demanding he stop the chatter and get to business. Grinning, Chinan Ryoga offers to help the vengeful ghost settle his long-overdue score. Dark energy pulses from the spirit, ready to embrace this twisted new alliance. Chinan Ryoga invites the entity to join his undead army for a second chance. Green mana crackles around his fingers as he prepares the binding ritual right now. Summoning a powerful vessel, he makes it clear that the real hunt begins today. This ancient spirit looms, silent and imposing, while Chinan Ryoga waits for a response. Red eyes flare as the spirit admits he never considered revenge in this ghostly state. A condition is set: the spirit will serve, but only if no innocents are harmed. Chinan Ryoga notes the irony, as this hero held the exact same standard before his regression. Smirking at the consistency, he realizes some souls are just too stubborn to ever change. A true hero through and through, the spirit stands firm despite his tragic, forgotten past. Giving his word, Chinan Ryoga agrees to the terms with a casual, confident nod. Accepting the pact, the spirit prepares to become the newest addition to the undead army. Magic flares as the system confirms ownership of the earthbound spirit, Sora Kashiwagi. Reflecting on the past, Chinan Ryoga recalls how he once wasted this talent on a skeleton. Now he has a masterpiece, a powerful new vessel ready to be unleashed on the world. Sora Kashiwagi questions if the body was specifically strengthened with his unique skills in mind. This system display confirms the stats, showing a terrifying potential for growth and raw power. Chinan Ryoga is thrilled, pointing out that this trait was missing in the previous timeline. Detailed logs reveal the magic fighter trait allows for seamless mastery of both combat paths. Checking in on his new ally, he asks how the physical form feels in action. Sora Kashiwagi admits it's decent, though still a step down from his original living body, wondering if the curse formula is the only thing holding back the true dragon form. Chinan Ryoga stays optimistic, knowing this start is already miles ahead of his last attempt. Turning toward the horizon, he signals the start of their next move. It is time. Chinan Ryoga calls his new undead powerhouse a minion, earning an immediate sharp glare. Our guy plays it cool while the Dragon Man stands there, clearly offended by the label. Sora Kashiwagi demands a better title because being a glorified errand boy is beneath him. Chinan Ryoga offers to use his real name, but the spirit claims he ditched that identity. Watching this bickering, Chinan Ryoga wonders if the spirit's personality did a total 180 after death. Naming a legendary beast is harder than it looks, especially with such a picky partner. Suggestions like Tiamat or Black Dragon get shot down instantly for being way too basic. Chinan Ryoga tosses out Serpent as a joke, which only makes the Dragon Man even angrier. Tensions spike as the spirit considers throwing hands, but he holds back his frustration. Finally, they settle on Fafnir, a name that actually sounds somewhat respectable for a dragon. Chinan Ryoga is ready to roll, but he's feeling the drain of this whole ordeal. Fafnir stops him cold, pointing out that walking around in his birthday suit is ridiculous. Looking around their desolate surroundings, the Dragon Man spots a makeshift tent nearby. Grabbing some fabric, he improvises a loincloth to cover his massive, scaly frame. Feeling much more civilized, Fafnir decides this makeshift outfit is a massive upgrade. Chinan Ryoga leads the way, marching off with his new, surprisingly vain undead companion. Wondering if this is the real Fafnir, Chinan Ryoga questions his life choices today. Back at the lab, the researchers freak out when their specimen starts acting up. One scientist is absolutely losing his mind with excitement, watching the corpse suddenly twitch. Chinan Ryoga arrives with Fafnir, leaving the lab staff stunned by his impossible, terrifying creation. Chinan Ryoga defends his scaly partner, though the lab researcher is clearly losing his mind. Calmly ignoring the panic, Chinan Ryoga keeps his focus on the mission at hand. Plans are set to return to Tokyo, where they can finally organize their growing loot. Green energy crackles as Chinan Ryoga targets the fallen orc chieftain for a new experiment. Crouching over the corpse, he wonders aloud what kind of monster he should craft today. Everyone watches in tense silence, waiting to see what twisted creation emerges from the remains. Smirking at the nervous scientist, Chinan Ryoga asks if he wants to see the magic happen. Terrified by his past mishaps, the researcher tries to back away from the dangerous ritual. Curiosity wins out, and he starts grinding ingredients with a frantic, desperate kind of energy. Watching the process, the researcher admits that Chinan Ryoga always finds a way to surprise. Focusing his power, Chinan Ryoga initiates the flesh separation to begin the dark binding process. Eerie energy pulses through the orc remains, signaling that the transformation is officially underway now. A tiny spirit pops up, mocking the idea of making more undead, but he ignores. System notifications pop up, confirming the skeleton's completion rate is hitting some seriously high numbers. This researcher hands over the extract, his hands shaking as he assists the dark work. Droplets of the mixture hit the bone, instantly boosting the skeleton's defensive traits for combat. Chinan Ryoga grins, realizing he just built himself the perfect, mindless bodyguard for future fights. A dark, satisfied smile spreads across his face as the ritual nears its final stage. This skeleton guard stands tall, fully armored, and ready to serve its new master's whims. Giving his orders, Chinan Ryoga demands total protection whenever he uses his life drain ability. Chinan Ryoga praises his new skeleton minion, clearly pleased with the rattling, bony results. Aratani questions the choice of a skeleton, but Chinan Ryoga explains the durability benefits. Life drain requires a sturdy bodyguard, and these bones fit the bill perfectly, he notes. Watching the master plan unfold, Aratani is genuinely impressed by the sheer level of foresight. Chinan Ryoga hands over the skeleton, telling Aratani to watch the new guard for now. Confused by the sudden departure, Aratani asks where he is heading at this late hour. Chinan Ryoga mentions a summons from the pantheon to receive a new holy spell reward. Stunned by the news, Aratani stares in disbelief, struggling to process the holy spell reveal. Panic sets in as he demands to know exactly what that holy magic implies here. A ghostly vision of a praying skeleton appears, highlighting the absurdity of his holy status. Repeating the pantheon message, Chinan Ryoga remains calm while his partner continues to lose it. Screaming in confusion, Aratani cannot wrap his head around the idea of a holy incantation. Staring at the glowing skeleton, he asks if Chinan Ryoga was actually a priest before. Chinan Ryoga plays it cool, claiming he is just a very devout believer naturally. Losing his mind completely, Aratani insists the situation is impossible, even if reality breaks down. Ignoring the meltdown, Chinan Ryoga pivots to business, asking about the mid-grade heal potion pact. Recovering his professional mask, Aratani confirms the review process will begin for the potion shortly. Chinan Ryoga commends the speed, noting that procrastination is the enemy of any growing business. Worried about the lack of publicity, Aratani frets over the long wait for the exhibition. Offering a solution, Chinan Ryoga takes a few potions to promote them during his travels. Chinan Ryoga hands over a potion, already calculating the massive profit he's about to make. Grinning like a shark, he knows this patent is going to print him serious money. Visions of gold rain down because, let's be real, cash is the only true god here. His partner stares in pure horror, wondering how a guy this shady claims to be holy. This pantheon looms in the distance, a massive tower that appeared after the world went sideways. People flock to this place for divine blessings, but Chinan Ryoga finds the whole vibe secular. Constellations demand offerings from their followers, turning the holy site into a glorified marketplace for power. Walking through the entrance, Chinan Ryoga is disappointed to find 0 high-tier relics just lying around. Climbing the endless stairs, he complains about the total lack of basic modern amenities like elevators. Apparently, the gods think 108 steps are the perfect way to test a mortal's true devotion. His ghostly companion mocks his complaining, telling him he's basically halfway to the top already. Chinan Ryoga retorts with a sharp tongue, clearly not enjoying this divine cardio session one bit. Realizing he still has a long way to go, he trudges upward with a heavy sigh. Exhausted but stubborn, he swears he is not leaving this place without getting his promised reward. Finally reaching the top, he stands before the celestial display, feeling the weight of the gods. System alerts flare up, showing the constellations are watching him with a mix of pure disgust. His companion keeps yapping about a masterpiece while Chinan Ryoga just wants him to shut up. A powerful entity steps forward, ready to claim his turn in this bizarre cosmic game. With a simple touch, the giant who defied heaven is officially registered into the pantheon. Chinan Ryoga bags his new holy spells, officially becoming the most confusing priest in history. Chinan Ryoga scores some wild new holy incantations, boosting his stats and negative energy output. That giant entity acts all high and mighty, acting like he's doing our boy favors. Laughing his head off, the celestial being clearly thinks he's the main character of this show. Reality check hits hard. The system says this giant lacks the status to be a real constellation. Apparently, the gods are just as needy as social media influencers, demanding constant praise and attention. Chinan Ryoga just smirks, knowing that even with a trash system, he's still leveling up fast. Walking through the city streets, he's suddenly cornered by a blast from his miserable past. Some random tough guy blocks his path, acting like they're old friends or something equally annoying. Sadek Shaidru looms over him, looking like he's been hitting the gym to compensate for everything. Our boy does not even blink, staring down this relic with total indifference and zero chill. Bragging about their shared time at the orphanage, Sadek expects some kind of warm welcome. Chinan Ryoga shuts that down instantly, calling him out for being a pathetic neighborhood bully. Flashback time, Sadek was always a total loser, picking on kids smaller than himself back then. Screaming like a toddler, the bully accuses him of snitching to the director like a coward. One swift move later, Chinan Ryoga puts him in his place with a well-deserved, brutal punch. Asking about his nose, he mocks the guy's pathetic healing speed while the bully seethes. Sadek tries to play it cool, acting like he's suddenly a changed man of class. Flashing a shiny guild badge, he tries to flex his new status like it actually matters. Boasting about joining the Aragiri guild, he thinks this little pin makes him a big shot. Threatening our boy, the bully assumes he's still the same weak kid from the old days. Chinan Ryoga hits back with a cold remark, telling the bully he looks exactly same. Sadek Shaidru loses his cool, veins popping as he struggles to keep his temper contained. Clenching his fist, the bully looks ready to snap and start a scene right there. A firm grip stops the escalation, someone stepping in before the situation turns into chaos. Jamin Ragu intervenes, reminding them they are in the middle of a busy city street. Frustrated, the bully complains about Chinan Ryoga while Jamin Ragu keeps his professional composure intact. Offering a way out, Jamin Ragu suggests they settle this with an official arena match. Internally, the team leader wonders why this kid would dare challenge a member of Aragiri. Someone else chimes in, egging them on to stop talking and just start throwing punches. Laughing, the bully mocks the idea, claiming Chinan Ryoga is just a fresh, weak hunter. Unbothered by the trash talk, Chinan Ryoga simply agrees to the match without any hesitation. Confused by the sudden acceptance, the bully stares at him like he has lost his. Smirking, Chinan Ryoga asks if he is getting cold feet before the fight even begins. Snapping back, the bully screams that there is no turning back from this challenge now. This scene shifts to the Aragiri Guild Gymnasium, the perfect stage for their petty grudge. Standing on the arena floor, the combatants prepare to face off under the bright lights. Chinan Ryoga announces he will use a proxy, summoning his dragon-like companion to the mat. Eyeing the summon, the bully flexes his gear and buffs, feeling confident in his stats. Chinan Ryoga delivers a final, icy warning that all those shiny items will not save him. This system activates, locking the arena and signaling that the real fight is finally starting. This system scans the arena, calculating HP and defense stats for everyone in range. Chinan Ryoga watches as the auto barrier activates, locking them in for the official match. Sadek Shaidru keeps yapping, clearly thinking his shiny gear makes him the king of combat. Unimpressed by the noise, Chinan Ryoga just wonders why this guy is still talking trash. Stepping onto the mat, his dragon-like companion prepares to handle this Aragiri guild member. Checking his new form, the beastly summon gets ready to test his current physical limits. Chinen Ryoga gives the order, telling his summon there is no need to hold back. Asking for a bit of restraint, he wants to test something before ending it all. Holding back proves to be the hardest part for the powerful, scaled combatant. Screaming in rage, the bully lunges forward with his spear, desperate to land a hit. Moving with zero grace, Sadek Shaidru swings his weapon like a total amateur. Dodging the clumsy strike, the dragon summon easily avoids the spear's point. Using a high-level reflex shift, the beast effortlessly counters the bully's predictable technique. Spinning around, the summon positions himself perfectly to humiliate his loud-mouthed opponent. Breaking through the bully's guard, the dragon shows off a masterclass spear counter. Watching from the sidelines, Chinen Ryoga smirks at how slow the bully's attacks really are. Catching the spear midair, the dragon's summon stops the weapon with one hand. Panic sets in for Sadek Shaidru as he realizes his weapon will not even budge. Mocking the bully's lack of strategy, the dragon stares down his pathetic, frozen opponent. Reminding him that in real combat he would already be finished, the beast gloats. This dragon summon realizes he accidentally went too hard. Oops, he meant to hold back. With a massive hand, he completely smothers the bully's face. Talk about a total shutdown. Sadek Shaidru gets absolutely leveled by a brutal strike, his ego taking a massive hit. Screaming in pure agony, the bully realizes his shiny gear is basically just expensive scrap metal. Chinen Ryoga stands there, calmly reminding the guy how he used to cry like a baby. Mocking his growth, he notes that at least the bully learned to scream a bit quieter. Enraged by the insults, Sadek Shaidru loses his mind, his face turning a lovely shade of. Standing tall, the dragon summon looms over the arena, waiting for the next pathetic move. Desperate to save face, the bully lunges with his spear, swinging like a complete total amateur. Crashing into the ground, his attack misses by a mile, leaving him wide open for punishment. Frantically trying to recover, Sadek Shaidru fumbles his weapon, looking like a total clown in gear. Smirking, the dragon warns him that repeating the same weak technique is a recipe for disaster. Delivering a swift kick, the summon shatters the bully's defense, sending him flying across the floor. Bone snaps under the pressure, the sound echoing through the arena. Talk about a bad day. Looming over the broken man, the dragon declares the fight over, his patience finally running thin. Raising a claw, he prepares to end this charade once and for all, no mercy. Tears streaming down his face, the bully realizes he is completely out of his league here. Stopping just inches from a final blow, the dragon pauses as someone shouts to halt. Chinen Ryoga watches, his expression unreadable as the intervention cuts the match short too soon. Smirking, he notes that the interruption happened exactly when he expected, all according to plan. This arena system finally declares the match over, leaving the bully sprawled on the floor. Sadek Shaidru is in rough shape, so his buddy rushes over to offer some help. Chinen Ryoga steps in with a cold reminder that he is already a qualified priest. Pointing out the obvious, he notes that basic healing will not fix a shattered, broken bone. Confused by the logic, the buddy asks how he plans to fix such a mess. Pulling out a mid-grade potion, Chinen Ryoga prepares to show off his high-end inventory stash. Shocked by the expensive item, the bully stammers about the insane cost of such goods. Refusing to take charity from the winner, the prideful bully screams for him to leave. Ignoring the tantrum, Chinen Ryoga insists on helping while secretly scouting for a test subject. Laughing internally, he realizes he has stumbled upon the perfect guinea pig for his experiment. Dousing the injury in the glowing liquid, he watches the magic take immediate, violent effect. Stunned, the buddy watches the bone snap back into place like it was never broken. Greed flashes in the buddy's eyes as he stares down that miraculous high-tier healing potion. Chinen Ryoga smirks, knowing exactly how to manipulate the desperate, power-hungry duo in front him. Questioning the source, the buddy demands to know where he got such rare, mass-produced gear. Realizing the bait has been swallowed whole, Chinen Ryoga prepares to reel them both in. Checking the guy's status, he confirms the captain is a 3-star threat worth his time. Offering a deal, he promises to reveal the source if the captain fights him now. Smelling a win, the captain agrees to the duel, thinking he can just take it. Smiling, Chinen Ryoga accepts the challenge, ready to turn this short brawl into real carnage. This arena lights flicker to life, signaling the start of this high-stakes, forced duel. Our guy launches himself into the fray, closing the distance with terrifying, predatory speed. Unleashing a flurry of strikes, he forces his opponent to scramble for a desperate defense. Acknowledging the reaction, he notes that even with fast reflexes, the guy is totally outclassed. Heavy hits land, proving that raw power and size have their limits against real skill. Warning systems flare up, highlighting the massive damage the dragon's summon is currently soaking up. Smashing into the ground, the summon creates a shockwave that leaves his opponent reeling back. Watching from the sidelines, Chinen Ryoga analyzes the matchup, already predicting the inevitable, painful outcome. Admitting his true colors, he reveals the potion was just bait to hook his target. Struggling with the sluggish body, the dragon summon prepares to adapt through this brutal fight. Praising his right-hand man, Chinen Ryoga flashes a dark grin, clearly enjoying the chaos unfolding. Deciding he cannot just watch, he reaches out, weaving dark energy into a lethal spell. Casting an impure blessing, he wraps the dragon's summon in a shroud of ominous power. Buffing his summon while debuffing the enemy, he turns the tide with a single move. Targeting the next victim, he sends his dark tendrils snaking across the arena floor. Feeling the sudden weight, the opponent realizes his stats are plummeting under the dark curse. Watching the debuff take hold, he smirks at the sheer efficiency of his twisted magic. Looming over the fight, his constellation influence makes the opponent question his own sanity. Taunting his own patron, he calls the powerful entity a bottom-tier, low-level joke. Ignoring the indignant shouting, he focuses on the fight, demanding total silence from his partner. Chinan Ryoga flashes a sinister grin, ready to unleash his next move on the arena. Activating the Wedge of Retribution, he turns his summon into a literal damage-reflecting trap. With a casual wave, he tells his dragon summon to just go completely wild now. Shadowy energy surges as the summon accepts the order, eager to start the real carnage. 3 opponents rush in, but their strikes only feed the summon's growing stack of retribution. Watching the chaos, Chinan Ryoga knows even high-tier fighters struggle when their stats get tanked. Sparks fly as the summon tanks hits, proving that raw defense beats their frantic offense. Embracing his undead nature, the dragon ignores the pain and focuses purely on the kill. Dark, viscous blood stains the floor as the summon prepares to unleash his stored power. Choosing to abandon dodging, the summon decides to force a brutal, up-close brawl instead. Muscles tense as the dragon prepares a massive, bone-crushing strike against his panicked foe. Delivering a devastating blow, he shatters the opponent's guard with a high-level combat technique. Blinding speed turns the strike into a blur, leaving the enemy zero room to breathe. Slamming the guy into the ground, the summon leaves him gasping for air and dignity. Panic sets in as the opponent watches his health bar plummet to 52%. Realizing he is completely outmatched, the guy starts sweating bullets about his impending defeat. Desperation fuels his ego as he refuses to believe a 3-star can lose this way. Sprinting forward, he bets everything on his superior speed to bypass the summon's defense. Closing the distance, he thinks he has found an opening to strike at the master. Chinan Ryoga stands completely unfazed, watching the desperate fool run straight into a massive fist. Chinan Ryoga calls his shot, unleashing a piercing strike with absolute cold-blooded precision. Watching the attack land, our guy does not even flinch, knowing exactly how this ends. Smirking at the predictable move, he confirms that the trap was set perfectly. With a flick of his finger, the Wedge of Retribution triggers a massive, bone-shattering shockwave. Down goes the captain, his health bar hitting 0 as the system confirms his defeat. High above the city, the Aragiri Guild Tower looms, hiding secrets behind its polished glass. Inside the plush office, the atmosphere is thick with corporate tension and unspoken threats. A nameplate sits on the desk, marking the domain of Submaster Shiraga Narihito. Narihito stares down his subordinate, demanding answers about these impossible, mass-produced mid-grade potions. Standing there battered and bruised, the captain admits the truth with a heavy heart. Narihito presses for details, his eyes narrowing as he questions the quality of the goods. Explaining the miracle healing, the captain confirms the potions are the real high-tier deal. Sweat beads on the captain's forehead, his eyes darting around in pure, unadulterated panic. Offering a pathetic apology, he tries to explain his failure to the cold-hearted submaster. Narihito scoffs at the mention of tarnished reputations, clearly unimpressed by the captain's excuses. Losing to a 1-star hunter is a stain, but Narihito sees it as pure incompetence. Coldly, he dismisses the idea that the guild's name suffers from one loser's pathetic performance. Terrified, the captain begs for mercy, realizing his career is hanging by a fraying thread. Swiftly, Narihito delivers the final blow, stripping the captain of his rank and status. Orders are barked to track down the source because greed always demands more supply. Corporate suits watch the arena feed, stunned that a 1-star hunter actually crushed a 3-star. Chinan Ryoga stands in the ring, looking way too calm for someone packing a divine beast summon. Back at the guild, the higher-ups demand a deep dive into this mysterious upstart hunter. Orders are confirmed, and the hunt for information on Chinan Ryoga begins in total silence. Unbothered, Chinan Ryoga knows the guild is scrambling and he is loving every second of it. He turns to his dragon summon, who is currently looking confused by a random skill book. This dragon holds up the manual, wondering why a beast is stuck reading about spear techniques. Chinan Ryoga explains that since he is a magic fighter, he needs his summon to teach him. Grumbling about the extra work, the dragon accepts the task while questioning the sudden career pivot. A quick flashback shows the intense, high-speed training required to master these lethal combat arts. Chinan Ryoga points out that enemies always target the weak link, so he has to level up. This dragon laughs, mocking his master for looking like a total pushover compared to his summon. Suddenly, the dragon's arm moves on its own, caught in the middle of a training reflex. With the book finished, the dude stands ready to start the real, grueling spear fighting lessons. Chinan Ryoga tosses the book to his summon, demanding that he memorize the contents too. Catching the manual with ease, the master prepares to absorb the knowledge for himself. This system identifies the Viridian-style spear book, a basic manual that even a child could master. A smug memory of a future rival flashes by, someone who has not even developed this skill yet. Smirking, Chinan Ryoga realizes the massive advantage of being a regressor with all the future knowledge. He activates the book, and the system instantly installs the spear proficiency directly into his brain. Chinan Ryoga reviews his new spear skills, noting how simple the 6 forms actually are. His dragon summon slams the ground with a spear, ready to teach some painful lessons. Watching the beast, Chinan Ryoga prepares himself for the brutal reality of this intense training. This dragon leaps high, explaining that true martial arts are learned through physical, bone-rattling impact. Crashing down with massive force, the summon proves his point by wrecking the arena floor. Standing amidst the debris, the dragon asks if Chinan Ryoga is ready for more punishment. Wind whips around the arena as the dragon begins a high-speed, lethal spear-fighting demonstration. Dodging the strike, Chinan Ryoga gets a backhanded compliment about his reflexes being barely adequate. Scolding his master, the dragon insists that constant dodging will never build real spear proficiency. Chinan Ryoga retorts that any sane person would dodge when faced with a lethal weapon. This dragon mocks him for holding a grudge, while Chinan Ryoga maintains his stoic focus. Reminding him that enemies will not show mercy, the summon demands he stop acting like a coward. Lunging forward again, the dragon forces Chinan Ryoga to engage in a high-stakes, real-time spar. Spinning his own spear, Chinan Ryoga finally steps up to meet the dragon's relentless assault. Activating the 3rd form, he successfully triggers the rotational guard to deflect the incoming blow. Sparks fly as the 2 spears collide, with Chinan Ryoga finally landing a solid block. Feeling the success of his defense, he immediately shifts his grip to prepare a counter-metal grinds against metal as he pushes back, testing the limits of his new technique. This dragon presses the attack, forcing Chinan Ryoga to absorb the full weight of impact. Gasping in pain, Chinan Ryoga realizes that learning the hard way is going to hurt. Chinan Ryoga stumbles back, clearly feeling the weight of that last brutal training exchange. His dragon summon stands tall, reminding him that the fight is not over just yet. Frustrated, Chinan Ryoga wonders why his defense failed when he thought he had it. That dragon points out the obvious flaw: blocking one strike is not enough to survive combat. Arguing back, Chinan Ryoga claims he did his job, but the beast is just overpowered. Stealing his nerves, he vows to go all out and change the outcome this time. Activating Life Drain, Chinan Ryoga forces his body to absorb energy for a massive boost. He triggers the 4th form of the Viridian style, ready to unleash a heavy shaft strike. Both fighters clash in a blur of motion, spears ringing out across the arena floor. Thinking he finally has the opening to counter, Chinan Ryoga realizes he messed up again. This dragon stares him down, completely unimpressed by his master's desperate, sloppy attempt at offense. Stunned, Chinan Ryoga finds himself on the ground, wondering how things went south so fast. His summon explains that he was too focused on the second hit, ignoring the first. Admitting the truth, Chinan Ryoga keeps the life drain active and prepares for another round. The dragon lunges with terrifying speed, forcing his master to react or take the hit. Screaming in pure determination, Chinan Ryoga grips his spear and meets the incoming lethal strike. Sparks fly as they lock weapons, neither side willing to yield an inch of ground. Night falls over the city, shifting the scene from the arena to a local eatery. Sizzling meat hits the grill, providing a much-needed break from all that intense combat training. A friend notices Chinan Ryoga's beat-up face, wondering what kind of disaster he survived today. Chinan Ryoga sits at dinner, looking like he just lost a fight with a brick. His buddy tries to grill meat while Chinan Ryoga keeps the details of training vague. That dragon summon, chilling in the ring, admits the brutal sparring session was actually fun. Chinan Ryoga smirks, secretly enjoying the fact that he can legally beat his own summon. Training is far from over, but Chinan Ryoga refuses to back down from the challenge. Life Drain is the secret weapon, boosting his physical stats beyond any normal human limit. Simple power is not enough, so he plans to master actual combat techniques with that energy. Regressing gave him the ultimate edge, and he intends to surpass his past self completely. His friend stares in genuine terror, clearly spooked by the dark energy radiating from Chinan. Cash flow is looking good after a quick job, netting him 15 million in days. Chinan Ryoga pivots to business, asking if there is any juicy hunter news worth chasing. HunterNet is buzzing with reports about serial killings and a dangerous, unstable dungeon gate. None of these current events seem like fast-leveling opportunities for an ambitious guy like. Memories of his past life surface, but he struggles to find a perfect minor incident. Mentioning the Forgotten Temple Gate, his friend brings up a location that sounds pretty ominous. Chinan Ryoga is shocked, wondering how that specific gate has managed to stay uncleared forever. Horizon Guild has been failing to clear it for a year, pushing it toward collapse. Culling monsters is the standard routine, but this gate is acting like a ticking bomb. Mana density is spiking, and Chinan Ryoga realizes this fluid gate is a massive problem. Danger levels are so high that the guild finally opened the gates to regular hunters. Chinan Ryoga grills meat while discussing which major guilds are eyeing the dangerous gate. That legendary dragon-scale armor dropped in the Forgotten Temple, a prize worth dying for. Smirking, Chinan Ryoga realizes that specific gate remains uncleared, perfect for his own secret plans. Combining his new spear skills with that armor would make him absolutely unstoppable, total overkill. Standing up, Chinan Ryoga orders his buddy to gather the team for a meeting tomorrow. This Forgotten Temple gate looms large, a swirling vortex of pure, unstable, magical energy. Mana density hits 93%, confirming this place is a ticking time bomb for everyone. Tents sprawl across the base camp as hunters flock to the site like desperate moths. With restrictions finally lifted, every ambitious hunter in the country is swarming the area now. Chinan Ryoga brushes off the need for a tent, planning to live inside the dungeon. His teammate worries about their 5-day food supply, doubting they can clear such a beast. Confidence radiating, Chinan Ryoga promises to finish the job in 5 days, no sweat involved. Suddenly, his friend points out a major arrival that has everyone at the camp buzzing. Asaka Mayuri, the legendary sword saint of the Phoenix Guild, strides onto the scene. Chinan Ryoga knows she was the one who originally cracked the code for that armor. Before his regression, she was a total prodigy until a tragic accident ruined her career. Another commotion breaks out as his teammate spots yet another heavy hitter approaching them. Daybreak Guild is sending Goda, a powerhouse who clearly did not come here to play nice. Known as Iron Fist, this guy is basically a walking wrecking ball for the competition. Watching the big names gather, Chinan Ryoga prepares to crash their party and take everything. Chinan Ryoga's teammate sweats, doubting if they can actually clear this massive, dangerous dungeon gate. Calmly, Chinan Ryoga tells the group to ignore the competition and just stick to business. That legendary armor and the temple loot are his targets. He is taking everything, no doubt. His team scrambles to keep up as Chinan Ryoga marches straight into the swirling vortex. Stepping inside, they officially enter the Forgotten Temple, a place where many have failed before. Chinan Ryoga activates his ring, summoning his dark companion to handle the heavy lifting ahead. Fafnir manifests in a burst of shadow, looking ready to tear through whatever stands nearby. Watching the summon, his teammate shudders at the sight of such twisted necromantic magic at work. Admitting his fear, the teammate confesses he thought Chinan Ryoga might turn them into thralls. Chinan Ryoga scoffs, clearly insulted that anyone would think he'd waste his time on them. Fafnir dryly notes they would only make mediocre zombies, leaving the team completely speechless and annoyed. Cutting the banter, Chinan Ryoga demands they focus on the mission instead of his dark methods. Massive stone pillars loom overhead, their ancient surfaces covered in thick, creeping vines of shadow. Everything shifts as the dungeon architecture begins to warp, signaling the start of the reset. Fafnir alerts his master to the changing terrain, questioning if this environment is even safe. Explaining the gimmick, the teammate warns that the layout resets every single day without fail. Reality bends as the temple walls slide into new positions, resetting every monster inside instantly. Chinan Ryoga stares ahead, recognizing this exact mechanic from his life before the big regression. Fafnir prepares for combat, casting buffs to protect his master while they navigate the chaos. Challenging the dragon, Chinan Ryoga tells him to stop talking and start proving his worth. Ancient stone pillars loom inside the temple, vines twisting around the crumbling, forgotten architecture. Fafnir stands tall, his draconic senses picking up a disturbance in the immediate area. A robed figure steps from the shadows, revealing clawed feet marked with glowing crimson runes. This fallen cultist emerges, a skeletal horror draped in tattered cloth and radiating dark energy. Chinan Ryoga identifies the threat instantly, warning his team about these dangerous, corrupted temple dwellers. Laughing with a manic, bone-chilling cackle, the cultist lunges forward to initiate the brutal assault. Fafnir meets the charge head-on, their collision sparking a violent clash of raw, physical power. Watching from the sidelines, the teammate panics, shouting for them to jump into the fray. Fafnir catches the cultist's strike, his massive claws locking against the enemy's thin, bony grip. Swiftly, the dragon shifts his stance, preparing to deliver a crushing blow to his opponent. This cultist's face contorts in a grotesque snarl, caught off guard by the dragon's sheer strength. Fafnir slams the creature into the ground, pinning him down with overwhelming draconic force. Bringing his fist down, the dragon obliterates the cultist in one swift, decisive, messy strike. Stunned by the display, the teammate can only gape at the efficiency of the kill. Fafnir brushes off the encounter, boasting about how easy that fight was for him. Chinan Ryoga sighs, scolding his summon for destroying the corpse instead of preserving it. More cultists swarm the chamber, their numbers growing as they pour out from the dark. Fafnir growls, annoyed that these pests keep respawning in this endless, shifting dungeon loop. Stepping up with his skull-topped staff, Chinan Ryoga decides it is time to get involved. Activating the staff's effect, he prepares to unleash his own brand of necromantic chaos. Chinan Ryoga unleashes his bone control, forcing the cultists into a defensive, chaotic scramble. Sharp, magical strikes tear through the ranks, leaving the enemies reeling from the assault. Dark energy pulses into the cultist's chest, marking them for a swift, brutal necromantic end. Chinan Ryoga knows the secret. Mixing dark and holy attributes is a total game-changer here. Their attack speed plummets instantly, proving his tactical knowledge is miles ahead of the curve. Fafnir lunges forward, his stats boosted by the master's buffs to finish the job quickly. All that intense training with Aragiri is paying off, letting him dive into combat fearlessly. Fafnir tears through the remaining cultists with ease, showing off some serious, raw draconic power. Silence falls over the chamber as the enemies drop, leaving only the aftermath behind. Chinan Ryoga casually mentions his life drain, acting like it's just another chore to finish. Fafnir snaps back, reminding him who actually provides the power for these fancy necromantic tricks. This dragon crosses his arms, clearly waiting for a thank you that isn't coming. Chinan Ryoga just sighs, missing the days when his companion was actually quiet and obedient. A sudden level-up notification pops up, granting him fresh forbidden knowledge for his soul. New skills unlock, slashing his spirit costs and making his undead army way more efficient. These upgrades are perfect for surviving the grueling 5-day siege in this cursed temple. Chinan Ryoga calls out to the fallen, raising them as his own personal armored thralls. Their stats skyrocket under his command, creating a terrifying squad ready for the next wave. His teammate asks if they are stronger than orcs, but Chinan Ryoga emphasizes the enchantments. This poor guy just stares, completely lost in the technical jargon of necromantic power scaling. Chinan Ryoga breaks down the stats, noting that raw power is not the real issue here. He urges the team to push deeper into the temple before the layout shifts again. This ancient architecture groans as the dungeon begins its chaotic, reality-bending transformation once more. Fafnir slams into the encroaching enemies, his draconic strength making short work of their defenses. Chinan Ryoga holds his ground, locking weapons with a skeletal horror in a blinding clash. A flash of holy energy tears through the darkness, decimating the ranks of the undead. More cultists surge forward, their numbers seemingly endless in this cursed, shifting stone maze. Chinan Ryoga grumbles, clearly annoyed that these pests just keep respawning without any real break. His feet shift as the floor beneath them starts to slide into a new position. This teammate panics, shouting that they need to escape before the entire room traps them. Chinan Ryoga pauses, a sudden memory from his past life clicking into place like magic. Flashback to a televised interview where Hunter Asaka explains the secrets of the Forgotten Temple. This interviewer leans in, desperate to learn the specific trick to clearing this impossible gate. Asaka reveals that reaching the boss requires a very specific, tedious, and mandatory ritual. She details the 3 monster types, each dropping a unique token needed for the path. Gathering 49 of these tokens allows a hunter to unlock the path via the pillars. Chinan Ryoga realizes the boss is waiting, his eyes narrowing as he prepares for battle.